Test, am I audible? Yes, you are. Captain.
Okay, I am. Okay, so before we start, let me just share my screen. Hi guys, so I assume that everyone's here. I'm just gonna do the roll call later on while we're at the allocation announcement. So congratulations for reaching the Open and Office Grand Finals of RIDC 2021. It's no easy feat. You guys fought three extremely hard preliminary rounds, and you guys fought some from pre-semifinals and some in semifinals or in novice semifinals to novice finals to make it this far. Congratulations, all of you should be proud of yourself and this achievement. So without further ado, maybe we should just start on the allocation first. So this would be the allocation of the room that you guys will be debating in. So on this main room, you're going to have the open grand finalist debating. You'll have HP without Hufflepuff and Nemesis. Let's just make sure that the debaters are here. Is HP without Hufflepuff here?
Here.
Is Nemesis complete also?
Here and complete.
Okay. So is Novice Grand Finals the battle here on government?
Yes, we're here.
And then opposition, are you here? Mihoyo Sleeps?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. So if that's the case, I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to rename yourself. If you're on this open grand final room, just rename yourself to team name underscore name, just like what my example gave you. If you're on Office Grand Finals, then you just rename yourself right now. So yeah, let me just wait for 30 seconds. Okay, I think that everyone's already renamed themselves already, so that's good. We're just going to proceed towards the motion launch first, like I did tadi. It was going to be the no face motion launch first, and it's going to be the open grand finals motion launch first. So without further ado, so first error prevention slide, second error prevention slide, third error prevention slide, fourth error prevention slide. And so the motion for Novice Grand Final is going to have a context slide. Eco-terrorism is the use or threatened use of violence of a criminal nature against innocent victims or property by an environmentally oriented subnational group for environmental political reasons. I'm going to give you guys around 10 seconds for you to be able to screenshot this slide. I'm gonna do it from now. And while at it, you guys could ask questions too. Is there any question? I'm gonna count from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I assume that there's not going to be any questions for the context slide. Let's just move on towards the motion. And so the motion reads, as environmentalists, this House will resort to eco-terrorism against corporations. Any question regarding the wording of the motion, I'm going to give you, starting from 10, to ask. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so I assume there's not going to be any question for the Novice Grand Finalists. All of you will start case building from now. You're going to start the debate at 2:41. Good luck for the Novice Grand Finalists, and may you enjoy the debate in the Grand Final. Okay, so after announcing the motion for Novice Grand Finals, I'm going to announce the motion for the Open Grand Finals. So error prevention slide 1, error prevention slide 2, error prevention slide 3, error prevention slide 4. So this motion is going to have a context slide also. On the 20th of July 2021, Jeff Bezos launched his rocket New Shepard under his company Blue Origin. One that he explained that is to to serve the rising market for space tourism. This launch was preceded by other billionaire tycoons such as Elon Musk, where most recently in the summer of 2020, his company SpaceX launched two NASA astronauts to the ISS aboard the Crew Dragon spacecraft, making SpaceX the first private spaceflight company to send a crewed spacecraft to space. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds to screenshot this info slide. Okay, that's 10 seconds. I'm going to give you guys another 10 seconds. I'm going to count down so you guys can ask questions about the context slide if you have any. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so I assume there's no question about the context slide. The motion reads, this House opposes the current rising privatization of the space industry. If you have any question, you can ask from me. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds to ask about the motion. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so I assume there's not going to be any question. Your debate will start in 30 minutes in 224. 244. Good luck, everyone, for the grand finals debate.
Hello, everyone. Case building time is over. Can I just get a quick roll call? Government team, are you here?
Government team here.
Opposition team?
Yes, we're here.
And for my panelists, Hagi, are you here?
Yep. Okay, I'm here.
Julfin, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Kevin
Here.
and Monica?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. So, welcome to the grand finals of Rio Islands Debating Championship. Yay. Okay. Under the motion, this House opposes the current rising privatization of the space industry. On the government team, we have HP without Hufflepuff, and opposition, we have Nemesis. Before we start the debate, Kevin, can you start share screening the timer, please?
Sure, give me 1 minute. Committee, don't forget to record if both teams consent.
Yep. Also, for all teams, before you start your speech, please don't forget to count down and also state your POI preferences. Gender pronouns are optional, but I still encourage all of you to just state other speakers by their speaker positions, like Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, LO and DLO, and so forth. So, that being said, without further ado, to start the debate, we welcome the Prime Minister here.
Wait, has it been recorded yet by the committee? Oh, the live stream katanya. Okay, screen's visible, right? Thanks, Matt.
Yes, it's visible. Prime Minister, you may start your speech.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
My POI preference is through the chat, and my gender pronouns is she, her. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. When space science is not prospering, both parties aims to develop the research on the sector itself. However, what differentiates both sides is that on our side, we let government handle the development, making it more accessible for the people to access, right? As compared to their side, where privatization of space industry is being handled by private companies, which is more likely to become elitist and closed off for the people to even begin with, right? Panels, before moving on to my arguments, few characterizations for this debate, right? Firstly, why we're going to explain why privatization happens in the first place. Notice how when space industry is owned by companies, they are more likely to make the information more closed off towards the people themselves, right? The fact that space tourism has already become a rising market, the likelihood for this sector to become a vital market is very huge. Panels, vital markets of the country can never be handled by private companies. Why? Because if we characterize companies, we say that companies are inherently profit-oriented. What happens under their side is that space tourism and the whole space research about the industry itself, and is going to be less likely to be accessible for the people at the end of the day. On our side, we believe that this space research is going to be better for the government to handle, for example, through governmental organization to handle the research itself. Because notice that private companies, however, on our side, private companies can help fund the organization itself to push the development of the research. However, the research itself is not controlled by these companies, and therefore we want the research and development to, exactly because we want the research and development to go back to the people at the end of the day, making it more inclusive to the people to access it, for them to utilize the research for the industry itself, right? Two things I'm going to talk about in my speech. First, about government's responsibility, and second, why the rising privatization hinders more development on their side, right? But on the first argument about government's responsibility, we say the social taxes that government gets to fund researchers on different aspects comes from the society themselves, right? Including space science, every part of their, every single money that they get are derived from the society themselves. Notice that the purpose of space science is to increase human development, right? Using the money that comes from society to improve the researches on space science itself. The social contract between the government and the society to proliferate the researches back to the people themselves for them to utilize. Two reasons why it is more likely for government to actually proliferate the researches to the people, right? First, we said that it is within the government's responsibility to ensure that development inside the country itself is going smoothly, right? To utilize the taxes that comes from the society or the aid from the private companies if they choose to aid the research itself to choose to aid the research itself for these for these sectors to boost the research to boost the development itself. But second, we said that governments have the interest to be re-elected for the power inside the parliament itself, right? When space science is already rising, it shows to you that this sector in space itself is becoming very popular within society themselves. When society knows that their money is being allocated for researchers, of course they would demand back all the results from the research itself from via the government themselves, right? Government have the duty to explain to the people about the information and make it more accessible to the people. If opposition wants to argue that government is going to be corrupted and will use the money only for themselves, we say that this is likely to be untrue, right? Because from the society themselves, knowing that for example, if the government is corrupted, they know that their money is going to waste because it is not being allocated towards the research itself. There's going to be no more interest for the society to re-elect the government for the power in parliament again, right? What happens then is the undermining of the progress of researching the moment the government is out from the parliament itself. And notice how, because the government always want the power, always demand the power for them to be inside the parliament, which is why we say that it's very unlikely for the government to actually waste the money that they get from the society themselves. Furthermore, if opposition wants to argue that development is going to be faster under our side, we say that it is not going to be true, right? First, exactly because on our side, we're not banning these private companies from aiding the research itself. But second, we said that even if development happens under their side, it is going to be worse exactly because only the privileged are able to access the entity itself. Noticing how private companies, they are very profit oriented. They always want the profit that they always want the most profit that they can get from the people themselves. But on the second argument, why the rising privatization of space industry hinders more development for the people, right? What are the comparatives under both teams? In opposition's world, we say that development from companies are going to be highly saturated, right? Exactly because companies are likely to be profit oriented. The likelihood for them to weaponize the people's demand for their own profit, making things more expensive and more closed off for people to utilize, especially the ones who come from the lower classes, for them to not be able to access these entities in the first place. We said that what happens then is the waste of resources itself, right? Exactly because companies don't want to share the discovery in order not to be outcompeted, for example, by another company for the sake of them maximizing the profit that they will get. This is going to be very bad exactly because it shifts away the focus, which is initially to improve the human development from the research itself, right? Exactly because companies would utilize the people's demand for capitalization purposes only to serve their own individual benefits. But even if they want to argue that these companies will make the space research accessible to the people, two reasons why it's still going to be better under our side, right? Because first, we say that the accessibility and the research for the research itself is not something that is exclusive under their side. Even if the development under our side is might be slower as compared to their side, however, if the development is there, meaning that the proliferation is still also going to be there, right? Meaning that if opposition wants to champion how the development under their side is going to be good, it exists as well under our side. However, second reason on why development is going to be better under our side, right? Exactly because we get more transparency from the government themselves, right? Exactly, especially from the people themselves. They have already been exposed towards the government, meaning exposed to the government's duty of them allocating the money that they get from taxes to fund these researches. Check and balance exist more under our side. Exactly because of that, people can have more leverage on the government to actually proliferate the researches that they get from the research itself, right? Being that at the end of the day, what happens under our side is that we're going to get development from the space industry itself, but we're going to make the space industry and the whole research more accessible for people, from the people at the end of the day. Proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. And now to open the case of opposition, we welcome the leader of opposition. Floor is yours. Here.
1 second, setting up my speech. Okay, for POI, I just prefer it if you unmute yourself. Thank you. I'll be starting my speech. By the way, am I audible right now?
Audible.
Okay, thank you. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels, before I move on to my speech, I would like to state some rebuttals for the government side of the House. Panels, the government side of the House had said that the governments are going to fund for this research or space exploration, right? We say that the governments have already too many jobs in different aspects. Hence, we say that the governments should actually use the money on other aspects to their country, like health and etc., which I'll explain later on in my speech. The government side of the House also mentioned that the private company is profit-based and got their money from society taxes, right? Government also, meanwhile, they fail to realize that the government actually also use the economy and have their fundings for this space exploration from society taxes, right? So it is just the same basically. The government side of the House also mentioned about private companies that are being enclosed. Now let's admit it, panels. Space industry in both sides of the world could or could not be enclosed. How so? This is because both governments and private companies can control what they want to let us know and what they don't to let us know. Nobody else at the points of arguments. Panels, we say that by the rising of these privatization industry of space involved in the space, we say that it would be effective as there would be low cost that the country or the government have to spend on other aspects like health and maybe like for their country's economy, rather than giving these funds for space exploration. When in our side of the House, private companies can do it by themselves without the government interfering and without the money going to inefficient use, because it is their own money, it is their own company's money, so they want to use it as wisely as possible as they don't have help from the government, right, panels? So in this way, they are going to make their research and space exploration as beneficial as possible in order to have a good result, to have the cost-effective research that we are trying to achieve here, and in order to not exploit their money to unnecessary needs that are going to be unuseful at the very end of the day. Plus, panels, the government, they are always we say that the governments are always changing, right? Hence they would always have different rules and different regulations if you want to do research and if you want to do like rocket launching, etc. If NASA right now is handled by the government, as I've mentioned before, plus NASA's research at the long run will always be delayed, as because it is only them who are able to do the space exploration. Our side of the House prioritize to have this space exploration as because it is what the interest of the space industry, right? So by having these private companies to have a control in their own space exploration, we say that it will be beneficial for them and for everyone, including NASA themselves and the government. Why so? Firstly, for the private companies, even though the government side of the House will say that they will fail as they won't have other sources of funds, panels, we say that it won't fail as in the long run, when they're doing the space exploration, we say that other companies or other individuals will also want to invest in them and for this exploration. Therefore, we cannot say that it won't be beneficial for the private companies. We say that this is profitable as the other companies can also invest in them in the long run. Second, on how the government will be beneficial in this, as they don't have to waste their funds in this, as they can use these funds to support other aspects of the country rather on this space exploration itself. Whereas on their side of the house, the government will have to continuously fund for the space research, whereas we say that it will take a long time, where the governments are also going to change over time, therefore delaying the space exploration process. In our side of the house, these private companies can also work with NASA to actually have the resources that NASA have, as they can work together. Therefore, there won't be money. There won't be money wasted, as we say that it is cost efficient, and there would not be money that is being subsidized by the government to the private companies. We say that these things are beneficial in our side of the house, as we have saved the government's funds in order not to be exploited, and we can have also this space exploration as efficient as possible. Hence why we are proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. To continue this debate, we welcome the Deputy Prime Minister here.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, so I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, one clarifications and one issues that I'm going to bring in this debate. First clarifications, if space industries is rising in governments, since that government in charge on our side, then there will be more pressure from the society to demand the result. Comparatively, under the side, the moment that LO told me that about the results, about the outcome, that the possibilities about outcome that came from their side, we believe that it is less likely to be happen, because they believe that the government outcome must have for the same of everyone's safeties, right? The government has the responsibility to give the outcome become inclusive to all layers of the society. Comparatively, under the opposition side, the moment they just rely on these companies, only the companies the benefits only for the one who can reach the certain standard or the price that are put by these companies. Even if on our side that the goal of is not holistic as that, at least on our side, at the very least, we can sue the government, noticing that government is responsible to us, to the society, and we can choose either or not to support the government since the beginning. So at the very least, on our side, the government can get the remorse effect from the society if in the worst case that happening on our side. Comparatively, on the worst case of their side, we believe that there's nothing that we can do. There's nothing that these companies are able to be independent. Therefore, this kind of independence is really toxic, because they don't care actually, or they can just use or weaponize the reasons or for not being exclusive just because they are able to do it by themselves. Okay, on the about the faster development that came from LO. First response, uncertainties that came under their side the moment they stated that, oh, there will be a faster development about that kind of insurance. But we'll see that in space industries and space matters or issues, it is really unpredictable, and you should ready for the big risk. Therefore, noticing that your statement is not enough to satisfy me on why development will be, even if it is faster, then they will just mark up the price of funds and the price of the outcome that might help the humanity, right? And we believe that it is more immoral, because what we do, that the space or the actually the safety of humanity is actually should be inclusive, noticing that it is the right of humanity, even if it is beyond their control. But we believe that every humans have to know something in order for them to secure. And we believe that the only one who gives the certain the kind of certainties is the government, that I will explain on my speech later. And let's comparatively, under our side, the government since the beginning has the purpose to give as fast as give fast result as fast as possible. Therefore, we can believe that government that we can rely on, the government the actors we can trust. So moving on my speech, the first point I'm going to bring is about the improvement of research and development, 2 layers of analysis. First, let me tell you actors who suits the responsibility. Space industries is something wide, right? So much thing in the universe we have to seek and analyze more. We believe that research and development of space industry should be continued with the credible actors. The parameter of credible actors that we are going to put in this debate is balance, don't take profit from the society, but in fact, and also would give the holistic development for the future of humanity. I'll explain this in my second points later, but back again with the research and development thingy, we believe that the parameters are the government due to prospering or ensure the fate of the society is on their hands since the beginning. So the second layer is about the aftermath. I'm going to rebut the transparency case that came from oppositions as well. So about the aftermath, what is the aftermath if the government take responsibility of this? Then it proves to you we can debunk the controversy that exists in the status quo about the space information and industries that actually so much exists in the status quo. Example of the controversy that exists in the status quo is the world will not last until 50, until 10, 100 years later. There's a possibility we could have extended in the several years to come, and etc. We don't say that this is totally false or totally true, but it leads to a false misinterpretations of the society, seeing that there is no hope for us. Seeing that there's no hope for the humanity. As actually, there is no use of you giving fund for the research and the development came from the government or either the companies as well about the space industries. Therefore, it will lead to a sentiment of the society to the government, and it is based under the basis of society settling for less. Of course, we believe that this is not fair for the government. Why? Because noticing that the government until like now they are able to fulfill their responsibility to the society, but instead we believe that on the oppositions they cannot debunk this kind of controversy that just hampered the work of the government itself. This is what we don't want to be happen, because principles and morally society deserve to know the truth about what has happened, even if it beyonds the control. But in the help of the government, then that kind of information that government will give to the people is objective and based on the truth. The likelihood is government wants to of this objectivity and based on truth is the government wants to maintain their credibility and want to gain the empathy of the people for always supporting them by paying your tax, so it can be allocated for fund for NASA, or another example for appreciate the informations that came from NASA and etc. And lastly, government should beat the controversy that exists in the status quo, because that is their one of their things that show they have the responsible since the beginning, right? So in conclusions, those are what we can get if government get if they can debunk the controversy, and the controversy should be erased due to avoid the misinterpretations. Comparatively, under their side, the moment we don't oppose the motions and and companies are just taking control about the research and development, therefore the research and development will only focus for the development, just like Rachel told you, because because they are profit oriented, but they just want the society to pay their research and development due to reach any benefits, or at the very least they want the break-even point, whereas no disadvantage at all. On opposition side, they cannot ensure the companies will not erase the controversy or hoax. In status quo, they also they cannot debunk on how the research and development in the companies only can be inclusive or not be not only just exclusive benefits privilege for the bad privileged actors, right? But before that, we can say that we want to be radical, but even if in the worst case that we just have to, that the government side also having any disadvantage about this risky development, but we say that it is okay, because noticing that as long as we get the support from the government of society, and as long we can get maintain our credibility, therefore the society will have to wait. Therefore the society will just understand that something is beyond our control. It takes time, and will just happen, or they will just happen us noticing that something that is beyond our controls needs some commitment, and we can get the commitment from the society first. Also, oppositions cannot erase the controversy, because it is only not their duty since the beginning as the companies, and actually they got direct support based on the hoax. They could just simply utilize it for hinder any transparency of the research and development due to be the hero in disguise the moment they could save the humanity. And also the research and development on the companies will be exclusive due to they will only prioritize for those who are privileged, for those who are able to be to help them independently to continue the research and development.
Thank you for that speech. To continue the debate, we welcome Deputy Leader of Opposition. Floor is yours. Here.
Can I have a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Wait, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, sorry. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels do realize that this motion is related to capitalism, right?
And in this right now, capitalism is happening. We, as the opposition side of the House, do not oppose the current rising privatization of the space industry, as it will bring more good than harm. In this motion, I would like to elaborate more on the benefits of privatization of the space industry and why we support the current rising privatization of the space industry. But before that, I would like to give some rebuttals from the government side of the House. They stated on how it will have bigger risk if privatization companies handle it. Exactly why it will have bigger risk, exactly why it is more safer for private companies to hold space industry instead of the governments, right? Because we said that it is private companies responsible, not the government's responsibility, as they have many priorities rather than space industry, right? People know that rockets and such things that are being done by the private companies. We know that Jeff Bezos is the one who launched a rocket successfully, right? Therefore, the government side of the House cannot say that this is an enclosed company. We say that these private companies should take credits for it, and it's also why you can't say that this is an enclosed company. Now, moving on to my argument, panels, capitalism is basically countries' trade in being controlled by private companies instead of the government or the state. It is controlled by private companies because they hold the country's trade oftentimes that they have enough power to make laws that can help themselves, right? Like my first speaker stated, private companies do not have nearly as large as a budget like NASA, etc. Unlike a government agency, private space companies must make a profit to stay in business. To make the money possible, private companies must find the cheapest way to operate. The goal on why space industry is built in the very first place is because they want to explore more in the space so that we know what is outside there, right? And such other reasons. We say it because they have enough power to make laws that can help themselves. It will have less taxes for them, maybe in terms of environmental tax. And so people like Jeff Bezos will exist, right? Because these billionaires never abide in the rules of human resources in the very first place, or that they resource their human resources in places. We say that this privatization of space industry are classified as a capitalist since they are included as wealthy people who uses money to invest in trade and industry, right? We also say that capitalism is the greatest economic system because it has numerous benefits and creates multiple opportunities for individuals in society, right? And like I have mentioned earlier, privatization of space industry are classified as capitalist, and hence why we believe that it will be more beneficial if space industry is held with private companies. We say that this decade, space industry has seen improvement in business, with new people looking to capitalize on different markets and more ambitious projects. The result is that there has been an increasement of growth within the commercial sector of the space industry. It's allowing for easier access to space with both positive and negative results. If private industry takes over human spaceflight destinations in the universe, and having political support for NASA missions to the other planet dissipates, there may be no point in having a government sponsored human spaceflight program at all. We said that government has other priorities, right? How would they have to travel the space at all? We say that it is safer and easier to give the private companies to travel and handle the space industry at all. We say that in the status quo right now, as I've mentioned earlier, private companies are already competing against each other and against government organizations, right? But government best interest is not on space. Like I've said earlier, they have many things to handle within the society. So their interest is not on space, right? Let alone that, as we know, government will change by time, right? As my first speaker has stated, their positions will change in time. They will not be in charge for the whole time. The rulers will change, right? The people will change. And we say that some governments want to launch this rockets and astronauts, and some don't want to. Hence, there are changes in the rules and regulation because they have different opinions, they have different thoughts and wants, right? We said if this is the case, if this case happens, the mission in where NASA will launch this spaceship, these astronauts to the space will not be achieved. Meanwhile, private companies has their own money, right? They have their own goals and they want to launch this spaceship towards space. So we said it will be easier if space industry is held by private companies instead of the government. in the status quo, we believe that there are several companies that goals for them to run the companies is to reduce the cost of access to space, mainly through reuse of launchers and spacecraft, making space accessible to people who are not specially trained astronauts, right? We said that it will be much beneficial in our side of the house since it is a space industry that is held by private companies. Do realize that privatization of space industry is not only in the country, right? It is international. We said that this will act as a buffer zone from international politics, which we say is something worth having. There will be a wider role in space exploration for for private companies since it will affect such international collaborators. We said that the benefit of the entry of the privatization of space industry into space exploration has been given recognition of the high technology companies that contribute to the growth of the economy as well. It will be valuable for the targets of investment. These investments has helped reduce launch costs across industry. Hence why we as the opposition side of the house do not oppose the current rising privatization of the space industry. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. And now to conclude the arguments from the government side, we welcome the government whip here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
My preferred pronoun is she or her, and my preferred POI method is just unmute yourself. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. One question that opposition failed to answer inside of this debate, right? First, why will the companies share their resources or information or any kind of development that they have achieved and share it towards the people when they have already invested so much money in that and give it free to the people, right? But they can never assume that they'll just share just because they say that, oh, the companies have development and at the end of the day, it will be given towards the people, right? And exactly because of that, no matter what benefits that the opposition try to champion inside of the debate, they fail to answer it inside of whether it will happen at all. One clarification before I enter my questions, right? They keep arguing to you about how the government is too busy to care and they have a lot of things to care about, right? Panels, we say that they are simply being extremely consumptive, right? Government will never be so busy as to having no time for the space industry at all, right? Especially when we realize that the importance of space industry is slowly being revealed in recent years by seeing on how a lot of companies like Elon Musk or, for example, like the Jeff Bezos itself are scrambling to invest, right? Exactly because it is so important and concerns the importance of humanity itself, because the government will care and will definitely spare a time to care about it, especially by seeing but how the space industry can actually be a potential solution to solve, for example, the climate change itself, right? This creates an urgency for the government to care about it, right? So they're not actually as uncaring or as busy as the opposition hope, right? Because most likely the companies are the one who is going to like care less about the space industry or, for example, only to care about profits of your market, as in comparison to the government that actually cares about the people and think that space industry have a potential to actually help the humanity as a whole. Now, two questions inside this debate. First, who can use the space industry to benefit the human population as a whole, right? What have we proven to you? Government has a duty to search for information and share it to the public. This is due to the fact that the government's funding comes from the tax citizen, right? My PM have proved to you about how the citizens have a leverage over the governments in terms of their future accountability. Hence, this ensures that the government has a duty to provide the accessibility of resources and information gathered from the space industry for the people, right? Not only that, this also ensures the accountability and the transparency inside of the space industry. In comparison to theirs of the house, normal citizens do not hold any leverage over the private companies at all, making this information and resources extremely elitist. No matter how fast and good they develop, we said that at the end of the day, if it does not benefit the whole population, but merely those capitalists that the development they have in the operations of the house, equals to nothing but tools for capitalists to get even more profit, right? Meaning that space industry will always be a private good and not a public one, making their whole argument about information and resources, blah, 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 mutually exclusive is completely untrue, right? We said that even if, right, development is better, we said that due to the character of these private companies, most likely the direction of the research of the development will be in the interest of the elites as in comparison to the majority of the people. For example, if it's on our side of the house, if the government hailed the space industry, we said that most likely the government is going to research in like making plantation capable in space, right? To solve the hunger, for example, in Madagascar and places where climate change is actually striking, right? But what will opposition do, right? They'll most likely try to search for that like a real natural in space where they could like create a better car brand, or for example, like Tesla, to increase the high end of that product itself, right? Exactly because of that difference in the intention behind the investment, most likely any development that happen in opposition is going to benefit the companies only instead of the people as making large, and at the end of the day, they're just going to sacrifice large opportunities to be able to help the human in status quo, but instead try to develop the industry only in the way that it benefits people, right? So what did the op try to champion? Like, they try to champion the cost effectiveness and time efficiency of this whole debate, right? First, we have to analyze on where does such a cost effectiveness come from. It comes from the lack or interference by government and citizens. Meaning that in the future, if the private companies patent all their resources and make it inaccessible, the government will not be able to interfere further, interfere in that, right? That the resource and information will be inaccessible. If they want to champion that will bring a lot of benefits towards the people, then they have to first prove us on how this information will reach the citizen or be used by the citizen, because notice on how my PM and DPM has repeatedly emphasized that these companies work on their private interest and not for the public interest, right? Even if there is development and they'll try to share it for the people, we said that at the end of the day, the need is only for their profit, right? Don't ever try to share like the whole information or like use the whole research for the interest of the people, but most likely they're just going to use part of it for their interest itself, right? Exactly because on the tipping point that we can actually make this resource accessible and beneficial for all people, we believe that we win this clashes on making who can actually benefit the human population as a whole, right? Second question is on who can actually create a better development regarding space industry, right? Three layers of metric, right? First metric is that who can actually create transparency and accountability inside of the development itself, right? We will prove to you on first on how we can actually have leverage on this government, right? Meaning that the citizen will have a right to actually demand this politician exactly because they are the source of funding, because they pay the tax and this tax are using to research the space industry at all. And second, they actually have this leverage on the government exactly because they have a chance to like re-elect the government in the future, right? Exactly because of this 2 point of analysis that my PM have proved to you, we said that on our side of the house, transparency and accountability can be demanded by the society towards the government that is holding the space industry. As in comparison to their side of the house, these citizens do not have any leverage over, for example, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk at all, right? In comparison, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are the one who is actually controlling them, right? At the end of the day, on their side of the house, even if they are trying to the people are trying to demand transparency and accountability from these people, at the end of the day, what the private companies will do is to neglect these people exactly because they hold no leverage over these people, they hold no source of funding, for example, for these companies itself, which means that on the layer of transparency and accountability, we win this, right? Second, on the metric of credibility, right? Whether the information or, for example, resources shared by these people are actually credible in the first place. This is what my DPM argued, right? My DPM argued about how, for example, the source of funding comes from the citizen, right? Which means that most likely the citizen have a capability to actually demand from the government whether their resource information are actually credible, right? The government also have a duty and responsibility to tell the people the whole sum of the truth, right? Because the whole purpose and intention to actually invest in the space industry is to benefit the population as all, right? Which means they will have like no interest to like keep the information for themselves and giving it out later only when they think that is profitable for them, right? And in comparison, on their side of the house, the credibility of the information coming from these private companies will be credited. For example, they'll try to like tell news towards the people, oh, we have found a new materials coming from, for example, a certain planet that we have explored, right? And you'll only give out this news, but not saying that, for example, they have found a lot of another research on the planet, right? They only try to like let out this news that they found a new materials because they're trying to launch, for example, their new product, which is used by this materials, right? And this kind of curiosity will, at the end of the day, make the people actually try to buy that product, right? But at the end of the day, their purpose and intention was merely to get the product itself, and not the credibility of the sources will be questioned, right? And that's why we believe that on the layer of credibility, we win these cases. Third is on the accessibility. Right? We have already proved to you in our first classes, but how, as the duty of the government, we have a check and balance and leverage over these people, right? Making these resources accessible because the intention behind it was to give the people a benefit, right? However, on their side of the house, exactly because the private interest is just to get profit and they become even more richer. At the end of the day, the accessibility will be deeply questioned, or even if it's accessible, it will be highly elitist. And that's why we believe that we win this debate so broadly.
Thank you for that speech. And now to close the debate, we call upon the opposition whip here.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I start my speech, if you want to raise any POI, you can just type in the chat box. So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Panels, our side of the house does not oppose the current rising privatization of the space industry. Firstly, I will state some rebuttals of what the government side of the house have brought. First, is like they question how the private companies will share the advantages to the society, right? Like they said, when few years come along, the private companies will maybe make the resources they found into not accessible for the society or the government, right? Now, we on our side of the house, we say that this will unlikely to happen. Why? This is because first, you see like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, what they have done, what they have found like in these few years, they have been sharing it and telling it to us or to the government as just like a whole in the social medias and every other aspects, just like they want the reason why they're telling us, the reason why they told us that they found this, they found that, they launched a rocket here, this is the first private company to like this, like that, because they wanted to create an image for them, so that they will always be seen like as the one of the greatest private companies. This is why we say that when they don't want their image to be ruined, so they will share everything to people that they have found in the research, so that their company won't fail, because they know they are not that cloud-headed to not give transparencies to the society and just let the society to guess like, oh, what are this SpaceX or what are these SpaceX doing? They don't seem to tell us anything about this, about their research and etc. So who will then invest to their companies? So we say that the private companies will eventually make these resources or even everything that they have found accessible to the society and to the government. Second, the government side of the house also question why the development is faster, how the development could be faster on our side. This is because we have said the best interest of government is not just about space exploration, is not in the space industry. So there is two burden of proof where we have asked the government side of the house to prove. First is about the transparencies, because both government and private companies could have the same problem of transparencies, because they could control what they told us and they could not. But because of that, then it's about the second burden of proof is about the private companies are profit-based from society taxes, well, but the government also got their fundings from society taxes, right? So about transparencies or profit-based society taxes, etc., maybe we could stay in the same place, in the same point where it is not really valid anymore to bring down one or another case. It is because like both scenarios could happen or could not happen in both sides of the world. So why not we instead focus on the best interest of the space industry? Because the government side of the house from the very first place have told us that the interest of space industry is to achieve the most beneficial, most effective of space exploration, space tourism, and as well as human development, right, panels? So this is why we should just focus on how we could improve the process or how we could improve the space exploration, just what the motion have suggested in the first place. So to summarize everything, on our side of the house, we have we do not oppose the rising privatization of space industry. First is because if government in charge, if the private companies are in charge, then the government will be cost efficient, because when private companies are launching their rockets, etc., they have their own fundings, not necessarily from the government. So because both private companies and government their fundings from the society. So why don't the government use the funding from the society to help and improve the society's health sector, food production sectors, and whatever, that it is more important and more important and more for the society.
Your eye, please.
Instead, the government set up a house wants government to take in charge of the space industry, where it is not the best interest, because there are really a lot of other priorities that the government need to fix in the first place. It's all about the education of the country, the health of the country, why it must be the government in charge of the space industries. Then on our side of a house, when private companies are in charge of the space industry and stuff, space explorations, then we could really achieve what we said, the most effective and most beneficial, and at the same time the fastest way to explore the space, just like what is the best interest of the space industry. Second, the management of government kept changing, right? Like every 5 years, the ministry of the government, like the positions of the government, like they constantly change. They have no constant position in the government, right? So research are not finished in like 1 or 2 years. They are usually finished by like 5, 6, or 7 years. This is why when private companies are handling this, they are just on their own, and they really stay in researching and improving and put all of their effort on the space industry, because that is what they want, and that is their best interest. Not like the government, where they could not really focus on the space industry in order to achieve the best interest of the space industry. This is why we say that on our side of a house, development is much faster and much improved when the private companies are handling. And maybe if you question about private companies will like run out of cash funding, but we say that run out of cash funding, while government always have the fundings from the society. We say that it is not, because it is just the same. Private companies will run out of cash. Instead, in the long run, this exploration will eventually invested by other rich people. And this is why we say that our side of the house does not oppose the current rising privatization of space.
Thank you for that speech. And now to hear the conclusion from the opposition side, we welcome opposition reply. Hear, hear.
I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels, we have seen that in this debate on which side of the house can actually have a beneficial or efficient space exploration and space tourism, and which side of the house can give benefits of this privatization, and which will actually benefit the space exploration, right, panels, whether it's the government side of the house or the private companies, right, panels. Now we have stated that on that goal, on why space industry is built in the very first place, because they want to have to explore more in outer space, so that we know what findings that we can find outside there, right? We say that because that they don't have enough power to make the laws that can help themselves, it will have less taxes for them, like maybe in terms of environment taxes, like my second speaker have said. And so people like Jeff Bezos and private companies will exist in the very end of the day, right, panels, because these billionaires never abide in the rules of human resources in the very first place, or that they source their human resources in places. We say that this privatization of space industry are classified as capitalist, since they're included as wealthy people who uses money to invest in trade and industry, right? We also say that capitalism is the greatest economic system because it has numerous benefits right now and creates multiple opportunities for individuals in society, right? And like I've mentioned earlier, privatization of space industry are classified as capitalist, hence why we say that we believe that it will be more beneficial if space industry is held within under the private companies, as these private companies can actually have much more benefits, research and efficient research, as they have their own income from themselves, rather than in their side of the house panels. Their side of the house can only have these funds based from the governments and taxes. Meanwhile, we have proven on this point on how the companies can actually have their own funds from themselves, and their companies and their companies themselves at the very end of the day. And in the long run, our side of the house, we can still have the benefits, as the government side of the house cannot say that these private companies will fail, because we still have the investments that will come from other rich individuals or rich people or other companies from at the very end of the day, as they're going to also invest in this research, as they have seen that the research before are successful. Meanwhile, panels, their side of the house, have said that the governments are going to fund for this research or space exploration, right? We say that the governments have already too many jobs in different aspects. Hence, we say that the government should actually use the money on other aspects in their countries, like health and other aspects, which me and my second speaker have also rebutted from their side of the house. Panels, the government side of the house also mentioned about private companies that are being enclosed, but panels, we have also mentioned that both sides of the house would be enclosed, as well as we have proven that, because when space tourism is rising, when it is trending, we know it from the government or from private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin. So our side of the house has proven to you that private companies of the space industry are not that enclosed as what they've said. Instead, when government controls this space industry, they will sometimes not be transparent at the very end of the day. Panels, our side of the house, have also mentioned that how by having these private companies to be in charge of the space industry can also lead to other collaborations, as they will also want to contribute like other international companies and other private companies that are rich, as it will be valuable to them, and as this will also benefit to the country's economic growth, as their targets of investment at the very end of the day. Panels, our side of the house, have proven to you on three aspects on how these private companies will benefit, how the government will benefit, and lastly on how the space exploration will be achieved in our side of the house efficiently at the very end of the day, right? Firstly, on how these private companies, like the company of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, how they're trying to also do this research and launching the rocket. By focusing on them, we can have a cost-efficient research, as they are funded from themselves, and as we have the proven at the very end of the day, this term, and it will be beneficial as other people want to invest in this research at the very end of the day too. Second, panels on how the government will be beneficial in this, as they don't have to use extra funds to fund for this research or explorations, which sometimes are used inefficiently. So by using the private companies, government can actually use these funds for other sources instead. And lastly, on how these privatization companies, it will benefit the research at the very end of the day, as it would be beneficial for us, as we can do this cost effectively and time effectively without having to delay the research. Hence why our side of the house opposes with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Now to conclude and end the debate as a whole, we welcome the government reply here.
Okay, am I audible right now?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, so I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, 3 tipping points why we as the government side should win this debate. First, about which sides provides more development. The main premise we got from the oppositions on why government wouldn't be able to handle the research is because they have a lot of other tasks to tackle. Then let me tell you, opposition fails to understand that when space industry is slowly become more and more prominent, that it perpetuates the urgency of the government to also focus on the sector. Knowing that how space industry hold huge potential to become the next vital market is why investment is also mutual. Likely, therefore, furthermore, because the manifestations of the space industry is going to be back to you that the government is also have the responsibility to handle the issues, and it is more suitable and credible in the hand of the government. But what differentiates both sides is our propositions, our side, from the intentions of the government. The focus on aspect is to centralize more to the proliferations of welfare to the people. Therefore, it makes the both informations and the welfare itself more accessible towards all the spectrum of the society. Furthermore, on the point of investment exists under both sides. But just because the government handles the research doesn't mean that private companies cannot help giving aid and development itself, right? Just like Rachel told you. Therefore, comparatively, under our side, relying on companies is never been a strategic move. Noticing that in the best case of oppositions that they could have they could give an inclusive alternative, but it will be conditionals anyway, right? They will trap the society on the sense of debt, noticing that the pressures to pressuring the society through this kind of sense is the way how the companies actually survive. Saying that the government is busy is another in another sector also just prove how bad the opposition analyze our actors. The oppositions never answer what is something is more crucial than the safety of an existential or explorations of for the sake of humanity, right? Even if they want to trade it with a focus on another sector, we believe that it will just lead to the waste investment and settle for less of the society, noticing that they will just trap under the echo chamber that if after this that I have nothing to do, I have not no one or no or even the government to rely on. Oppositions try to argue that social media is there notify the society. Okay, three reasons this is why this is likely to be unlikely to be happen. First, companies are more likely to be closed off with the research result, therefore noticing that they don't want to be outcompeted by the other companies by taking away the result. Therefore, they would just this will be a unhealthy competitions, and the companies are more likely to be closed off and just thinking about become selfish. And or even if it doesn't happen, this benefit come late from the opposition's whip, which is but most importantly, if companies would want to spread the information importance or the information, it is highly conditional on profit at the end of the day. But even if the companies do open the informations, we argue on the point of capitalism. Private companies are more likely to weaponize the society's demand for the capitalism purposes to reap the profit from the space industry itself. Therefore, which is why it is more likely for the companies to only provide the result on the accessibility of the space tourism itself in the sector of the privileged individuals only. Therefore, even if the information is spread, it stops. It will stop the moment companies view your financial situations to purchase the product itself, and it actually depends on the economic stability of the society itself. And then second, on the point of continuity or commitment, when I bite the bullet, which is even if it takes time to the government to run this research and development, then why it is better compared to their worst case? Because what makes a government is a government actually when they have a noble visions for the humanity that leads to the sense of trust from the society. Just like Rachel had told you that if the government they fail, they would just possibly want to be will not be re-elected. It proves to you that the trust of the society depends on the life of the government. Exactly because the society demands exposure, therefore the check and balance, transparency, and also exists more under our side. In conclusions, our worst case government would just responsible on the research and development that they have started under the basis of commitment and continuity, because space industry should give outcomes such as wide explorations, and it only happens smoothly if the government is under control due to and we believe that because it giving the society and it will give society an inclusive outcome for the sake of prosperity and trustworthy between governments and society. And we believe that actually the government deserves to be the right hero. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. And that concludes our wonderful open grand final. And now to all judges, we can move to adjudication chamber GF open.